will be propagated to all the different web server processes. Well, that's config-z. And then top-z, if you make a request to top-z, must also be authenticated. You don't necessarily want the rest of the world to know what your most popular pages are. It'll give the process ID, and it'll give all of the URLs and the number of times that those URLs have been requested. Basically, it uses a bounded hash table to store the topmost requests. So that's those are the handlers. In real life, and I thought it might be useful to just kind of walk through the main loop of the quarantine filter function, which is at the heart of the module. The first thing that happens whenever any request is made to the web server and the mod anti-malware module is invoked is it will update the bounded hash table that is responsible for responding to the top-z request. It will then, for each URL prefix that there exists quarantining directives for, it'll check. Or actually, I'm sorry. I'm talking about the mod anti-malware light architecture here. So it'll look for each URL prefix for which there's a blacklist URL prefix directive, and will check whether or not the URL being accessed is for that URL. And if it is, it will basically serve the redirect message and will construct a completely new bucket brigade. For those of you that are familiar with Apache and its architecture for modules, it keeps a passive set of buckets that go through processes. We'll construct a bucket brigade with the blacklist redirect message and serve that. If not, if we shouldn't do a redirect, the one other thing that it'll do is it will send a HTTP response header called xquarantined1. And the reason that's important is because what the monitoring service does as one of its value adds is after quarantining directives have been sent, it will verify whether or not all of those quarantining directives have successfully went into effect and malware is no longer being served by the website. So the monitoring service can use the xquarantine directive to figure out for a particular URL, is the module doing something? If the module is doing something, and for instance, the page is no longer infected, then you're in good shape. The infection has been contained. On the other hand, if the module is doing something and serves the xquarantining directive and the malware is still coming down, then basically the monitoring service can send a upgraded quarantining directive. And actually, we have a white paper describing mod anti-malware and all these details. You can check it out on the Blackhat CD. But in any case, if you don't need to do a redirect, then you just go through the standard set of Apache functions to then take the output filter out of the loop and pass the brigade of content to the next module. So another couple interesting things about the implementation. I mentioned authentication. This is a screenshot of the configuration that we have at Daswani.com for a particular mod anti-malware module. You see that when a domain is added for monitoring, it provides a Daswani short authentication key. It reports on whether or not the module is enabled. And basically, once somebody enters this particular screen, the monitoring service places a status Z request to ask the module, hey, are you okay? Are you operational? Are things good? And that's why we get back an OK message. So authentication is a interesting part of the implementation. Quarantining verification, I also mentioned, is an interesting part of the implementation where the monitoring service can check whether or not the module is doing something and whether or not the page is still infected and decide if more drastic containment is necessary. In addition, I had mentioned that when directives get sent to a web server process, that web server process updates its configuration directives in shared memory, and it basically shares that set of directives with other web server processes so that the web server doesn't need to be restarted to use these new configuration and quarantining directives. And then of course it writes the new directives to disk such that when that web server is restarted, it uses the latest set of configuration directives. So there's a lot of future work that we're doing, and for those of you that are interested, there's some mod anti-malware light open source projects that are available. So one of the things that we're in the process of doing is adding virtual host support. So currently, if you have a dedicated web server, mod anti-malware light works as is. We would like to extend it to support virtual hosts, such that if you're serving multiple websites from a given dedicated server, it will do the quarantining appropriately. So the virtual host support is one area. In addition, right now we have shared key authentication with a fairly long shared key, but we can also support, or one area that we'd like to support is certificate-based mutual authentication, where you can basically deploy a cert on the web server, and there's a mutual certificate-based authentication. I'm sorry, on the web server right now, it does check whether or not HTTPS is running and whether the request comes over SSL, but basically the monitoring service could use a certificate to prove itself as a client to the mod anti-malware module. That's a future work project that's available. And then we're also working on supporting automated deployment of quarantining directives. So for those of you that like hacking on open source projects, please come up to me afterwards and let me know. So, where can you learn more? There is a SourceForge page that we have for mod anti-malware. You can check that out. You can download it from there, check out some of the documentation. If you're interested in learning more about the monitoring service that Dascient offers, you can check out our website, our blog, our Twitter feed. There's a lot of different resources you can check out. If you're interested in this general area, I have a lot of publications and resources on my own personal homepage at neildaswani.com. If you're interested in general in web-based malware attacks, in web security, I'd encourage you to check out Stanford's security certification program. Let's see. So that's one area to learn more. And if you want to learn more about web application security, there's my book, Foundations of Security. I'll be raffling off a copy in just a second. The book has a website, so you can actually access not only the errata, but both at that website as well as at Google's Code University. There's a set of downloads that are available. We've made available chapters corresponding to, we've made available slide presentations corresponding to each chapter of the book on that website. And so if you need to educate a large number of folks, say, at your organization about security, this book is one great way to do it. The book covers not only security principles, but it covers web-based attacks, SQL injection, cross-site scripting, client-state manipulation. It has a chapter on cryptography as well, or a section rather on cryptography as well. So there's pretty good foundational coverage for you if you need to help enable an entire organization to learn more about security. So I think those are the key things that I wanted to cover. I think there's a lot of progress that we need to make in the field in general, and through technologies like mod anti-malware, it'll be great to not only be able to detect attacks but contain them. And the hope is that we can curtail the spread of web-based malware by using technologies like this. In any case, I hope that some of you may be interested in working together with us on this. More than happy to work together not only on this front, but I think what I'll do is bring my talk to a close by just saying that the internet's been a great platform for all kinds of new ways to conduct commerce, communicate, and collaborate. And I look forward to working together with the community to continue to make sure that the cyber criminals don't turn it into into a wreck for all the good users that are using it in various ways. Thank you. So I guess what I'll do at this point is I'll take a couple questions, and then I'll raffle off a copy of my book and invite folks to come up and pick up passes for our private party. Question?
Oh, thanks. Got a microphone in my face. The way it's implemented is you need to connect to my web server via HTTPS, right?
A monitoring service like ours would need to connect to your web server. That's correct, via HTTPS.
Is it not possible that, for people who aren't currently allowing inbound HTTPS connections because they don't have secure parts of their site, could you not implement it the other way around, so that I provide you with information and asynchronously in the background, and you you update me on whether what I'm doing is
that is an implementation possibility. The key thing there is that the polling frequency would. So one of the advantages about the monitoring service making a call is that most websites expect inbound calls anyhow, and basically the second that an infection is detected, the quarantining directive can be sent. If you implement it the other way, which is a deployment model that could work for some organizations, if you implement it the other way, then sometimes there might need to be a request that takes place from within the firewall outside, which could look like something malicious going on. And then the important thing is that if that deployment model is amenable to an organization, then the polling frequency would have to just be often enough such that if there is an infection, you want to make sure that polling frequency isn't too large, because then the site could be exposed to be serving web-based malware infections during the interim between polling.
But you're not going to call me every time you know some new dangerous intelligence about the web, right? Otherwise, you'll be making connections to my website
right, that's right.
second.
The monitoring service, our monitoring only makes connections when an infection has been detected and quarantining directives need to be deployed.
When something's been detected on my site?
On your site, that's correct.
Okay.
Great.
Thanks.
There's another question?
On that same subject, would it be possible to do like a self-signed certificate? I mean, his example was, if there's... Would it be possible to do a self-signed certificate? His example was if there's a bad... or you don't have a certificate for your website, but you still want to be monitored. Would it be possible to have your monitoring service accept a self-signed certificate so that they don't have to go out and get
yes, that is possible. So the question is, can you use a self-signed certificate? The answer is yes. Great, very good. Okay, I think what I'll do is at this point, I'd be happy to take more questions offline, but let me do this. Let me raffle off a copy of my book first. So here's a question. Can somebody name one of Dacient's investors? So first of all, I need a hand. And there's a hand off there to the left. Google. So Google is not currently an investor in Dacient. Another try? Stratton Sklavos, that's correct. Stratton Sklavos, the former CEO of VeriSign, is one of Dacient's investors. Please come up for a copy of your book and give him a round of applause. Or he'll come up and get it afterwards since he's embarrassed to come up. I don't know. Great. Okay, wonderful. Well, other than that, I appreciated the opportunity to come tell you all about mod anti-malware and how it works. My hope is that what we can do is use technologies like this to complete the life cycle of malware protection for websites and web servers. Please feel free to send any questions about it. But if you're interested in coming to a private party that Dacient and Senzik is throwing this evening at 9 p.m., we're going to have food. We're going to have drinks. It'll be a lot of fun. Just come up, and I'd be happy to give you a private party pass. So see you guys all at the party.